Hey everyone, my name is Jose, aka Joe Engineer, and I've got another quick Porsche 911 DIY for you guys. Right now, I am in the process of repairing a lot of issues that I have with my driver's side door. So I stripped off the door panel, removed the door panel, and I'm going through repairing a bunch of stuff that I'm not really gonna get into in specific detail right now. But one of the biggest problems that I have is that this device here, the door stay, or detent as they call it in some cars, is the device that prevents your door from just swinging out all the way and hitting the car next to you in a parking lot. And it also holds the door, or it's supposed to hold the door in very specific angles so that if you open it and leave it here and let go of it, it stays there, etc., or it stays at very specific angles depending on each one. And the door stay looks like this. I'm going to replace mine because mine is worn out. Literally, if I open the door and let it go from a closed, slightly closed position, it's not really doing it right now, but most of the time it will just open itself all the way out by itself, just like that, and hit something, which we don't really want to do at Cars and Coffees or other car gatherings or anywhere really. So what I'm going to do is replace the detent, or door stay rather, and it's just this little unit. This is a Porsche unit. You can get them anywhere. However, once you have the door panel off, it's a simple unbolt and replace procedure. However, in certain cases, like on this car or cars with high mileage, there it is right there, you can see it. What happens is that this device is bolted into the thin sheet metal face on the door right here. Actually, it's kind of recessed, but it's bolted to some very thin sheet metal, which you can imagine, after thousands of openings and closings, begins to weaken, eventually cracks, and eventually, if it's neglected enough, it will actually tear the surrounding sheet metal where this is bolted to, will tear away from the rest of the door. And that's a huge problem because now you can't simply take another unit and bolt it on in place. And I will show you as best I can here that on my door, this is kind of a worst case condition here. See how it's not difficult to tell from this angle, but it's not bolted to anything anymore. The surrounding sheet metal has failed, and it's literally just hanging out in space inside my door. The only thing this is doing anymore, there you go. Yeah, that's a pretty good example right there. You can barely see the sheet metal behind it is all mangled and messed up. And the only thing this old door stay is doing is preventing my door from swinging itself all the way out further than its maximum travel, and preventing the sheet metal from hitting my fender. That's literally the only thing that it's doing right now. So what I'm going to do here is drive out this pin, undo the bolts, which I don't think you can see them from this. You could barely see the lower one right there. There's another one up here that's obscured, but you can't see it because the sheet metal is all mangled. What I'm going to do here is try to undo those two nuts, actually, because there are studs on the door stay. Drive out this pin, take the door stay out, and while this is free, prop the door so that it doesn't swing out any further and cause any damage between the fender and the door. Then what I'm going to do is try to install a new one. However, in order to compensate for that damaged sheet metal that the door stay bolts to, there is a reinforcement kit made by Renline. I don't know if there are any other ones out there, but basically it comes with these two reinforcement plates that essentially, if you look at this exploded view diagram, will sandwich. If this is your door sheet metal and it's all mangled and torn up, the two thick reinforcement plates will sandwich the damaged sheet metal, and now you can bolt the door stay from the inside of the door, put the two new included longer length bolts in from the door jamb side, squeeze this entire assembly together, and hopefully now your new door stay will function the way it is, and it will prevent your door sheet metal from getting torn up any further. At least that's the idea. So here's the door stay, here are the two plates, and according to this diagram they kind of install, let's see if I can get this, they sort of go like that and then like that. So these two pieces will go from the inside of the door in here. Then once I get this out through the door, I will place this piece over, and then the door sheet metal will sit in here, and I'll somehow center everything and then put the two screws in there. And these are super thick. I want to say they are maybe 1/8 of an inch thick, laser cut steel. So so yeah, let's get to it and see if we can get this door to work for another few years. So the OE door stay kit comes with a new door stay for either that works on either the left or the right side. And in a perfect world, if your doors weren't mangled up, it comes with these two replacement bolts that are quite short, but they work in the OE configuration. However, since we will be sandwiching the two 1/8 inch plates on either side of the door, and now we need longer bolts than these. So the reinforcement kit comes with longer screws, cap head screws, that you can use instead of these shorter bolts. Also, the OE door stay kit comes with a new pin and a little C-clip to secure it that replaces the OE pin that you will drive out with a hammer. This looks like it's just a roll pin, so after you pop it out, after you drive it out with a hammer and a punch, you probably won't be able to get it back in. So you pop in this new pin, and then you secure it with a C-clip on this groove here to prevent it from sliding back out. So the first thing you want to do to get started on this is to strip down your entire door remove the entire door panel and all of the stuff that goes above it, like the door handle, the lock pull mechanism, the little knob that locks and unlocks the door, and the speakers, and all the stuff that goes on the door panel. I'm not going to go into detail on that because the Bentley manual, for all of its faults, actually does a pretty good job of covering this in section 570. And it goes through the step-by-step procedure on how to remove all the exterior components to get down to this configuration that you see right here. After you have your door panel completely stripped down, what you would do next, if your doors were in good shape, would be to remove the two nuts that are holding on the body of the door stay from the door jamb side. However, in my case, my door is so mangled, the nuts and the unit aren't even attached anymore. You can see how they're sort of just hanging there freely. So I'm going to skip this step and I'm going to go to the next step, which is to drive out this pin. And you should be able to just maybe squirt a little bit of penetrating oil on there, and then get a flat punch or a drift and gently tap this out. And at that point, this entire unit on my car should drop right into the door, and then I can get in through the door panel and pull it out. Also, before you do this, you want to go ahead and put something heavy and cushioned behind the door to keep the door from swinging out, because at that point, this door stay strap will no longer be limiting its travel, and you don't want the sheet metal to bang into itself and cause any paint damage. And there we go. Here's the old door stay with the pin. All right, so now let's evaluate the damage. So there's supposed to be a rectangular hole here for the door stay arm, a circular bolt hole up top and on the bottom, but I can almost stick my entire finger through here, so this sheet metal is pretty mangled up. It's in really bad shape, but I think we might be able to make it work. Here's a view from the inside. I'm not sure what's going on here, but this section, this piece of door skin sort of got splayed out back towards the inside of the door cavity instead of being flat against here. Maybe it just worked itself that way over many opening and closing cycles. So I'm going to grab some pliers from the inside, bend this back so that it's flat against the surface here, so we have the maximum amount of sheet metal to clamp onto, and then we'll see if we can get these plates in position. One quick detail about the old door stays versus the new door stays is that the old ones have studs built in, so you put on a nut from the door jamb side, and this stud is just long enough to put on the nut and contain the thickness of the sheet metal. But the new ones have captive threaded nuts in them, and instead you install a bolt, which is good because now with the additional thickness of the reinforcement plates, we can install a longer length bolt to secure everything in place. So I've more or less flattened down the metal as best that I could. I took the kind of bent out portions and tried to flatten them as best that I could on both the inside and the outside. And actually the metal is very thick and it's impossible to bend it straight with your fingers or, you know, hand pressure from the end of some pliers or something, and there's no other way to really get in there. So what I had to do is I have a set of some cheap body hammers and dollies, and I kind of did the best I could to just get in here and bang on that surface, you know, until things got flat. You know, I had to do it obviously very carefully so I didn't damage the wiring that you see there. But if you have a set of cheap hammers and dollies, or some fairly large heavy punches like this brass drift, or even some regular drifts, then you can get in here and you know, put some weight behind it and try to flatten out the metal as best as you can. Again, it's not perfect, but the idea is that at least the metal that you're going to clamp down with the reinforcement plates is as flat as possible, so that you're not depending on the screw threads to squeeze those pieces of metal together or bend them into place. And you can see I sort of have a rough bolt hole top and bottom, and this rectangular-ish cavity where the door stay will go through. And you can even do a quick test fit to make sure that you can see the top hole, the top threaded hole lines up, the bottom hole also lines up, and you can get the door stay arm to go through. So yeah, keep you know, tapping away at the metal until you get it to this state roughly, and then you can go ahead and start to put the plates in position and the door stay. This inner plate has to fit in this recess between the mounting surface and the outer skin of the door. Do yourself a favor, and so you don't lose it, so you don't lose this piece down deep in the recesses of the door, tie it to a long piece of string or fishing line or something so that you can recover it just in case. Okay, here's where we're at. I put my plate in, this inner plate in with the string tied to it. I sort of fished it in place. Once it was in position, I held it with one hand while I came in through the door cavity and put in the larger plate and the door stay from the inside. And then I got this little screwdriver and a sharp straight pick, and I put them both through the holes just to line everything up. Then once everything was lined up, I pulled the pick out, grabbed the screw, and while holding everything from the inside, I, as carefully as I could, tried to get this bolt started finger tight. Once the threads were engaged a little bit, then I came in with a little Allen key and turned it a couple of turns until I was sure that the threads were engaged. And now this guy is in, and now I can pull out this pick and do the same operation with the second screw. Now the whole time you want to make sure it stays relatively loose. Once you get both screws started, then you want to go ahead and line up the door stay arm inside the these two little tabs so you can drive in the pin. Here's a view from the inside. You can see the screwdriver here on the bottom side and the screw engaged up at the top, and you can see how large that this inner plate that goes in the door actually is. This should do a better job of protecting against further door damage than it was originally, due to the large surface area that the load is being spread across. Once you have both screws engaged finger tight, and you have this whole assembly in here more or less not super duper tight but secure to where it's not going to fall apart, you can probably cut your string. Again, make sure the door stay arm fits between these two tabs, and then your next task is probably going to be to insert the pin. Close the door a little bit, insert the pin, get it to engage in here, tap in the pin, put the C-clip on the bottom. Once you've got that in position, then you can come back and give these two screws their final tightening, alternating between each screw as you give them a partial turn, as it gradually cinches down the damaged sheet metal in between the two reinforcement plates until it's nice and hand tight. Now, how do we get this pin into its final position? Well, it took quite a bit of force, because here's an extra one from another kit that I'm going to use on the passenger side. This lower diameter of the pin fits nice and snug through the holes in both of the tabs and the door stay arm, but the upper diameter of the pin, as you can see, is bigger, and it has these splines that bite into the metal of the tabs. Actually, I don't know if they bite into the tab or if they bite into the arm, but they maybe even both. But anyway, it takes quite a bit of force to drive it all the way home, and you can't get this C-clip on the lower groove until this pin is seated all the way down. Then you can expose the groove on the bottom, and then you can put the C-clip on. Here's the door stay all buttoned up. You can see if I close the door, the arm of the stay slides in and out while the housing stays fixed to the door skin the way it's supposed to. It's a little stiff right now because it's brand new, but it's working the way it's supposed to. Because it was a little scary swinging a hammer in this little space in here, I had to get it creative to, in order to drive that pin in place, I just simply grabbed a couple of half-inch extensions that I had that are super beat up, and I was able to tap it in from up here where I have more space and less of a chance to, screw anything up. Lastly, one final detail that I wanted to point out that might be, hopefully is just unique to my situation and you won't have any issues, but when I installed this plate, you see this rectangular cutout in here? Well, that cutout, the height of this rectangular cutout should be bigger than the height from the bottom to the top of this tab here. And the reason for that is that when the door swings shut, that there's clearance for the tabs in this recess. Now, I don't know if it's supposed to fit, if it's even supposed to fit in there or get that close. In my case, because my door was so mangled, maybe the position of this mounting surface is off than from where it was originally. But in any case, on my car, what ended up happening is that the outermost surfaces of the tabs here ended up touching this plate. And I was able to, or tried as best I could, to loosen the bolts and slide the plate up and down to center it as best as possible over the height of the two tabs. And what I ended up doing is shaving off some of the paint on the top surface of this tab here. Not the end of the world, but if I were the person designing these parts, I would have made sure that this cutout had a little bit of clearance top and bottom to those tabs. Hopefully it's not the case with you, and this is just unique to my car because, as I said before, I have the mangled sheet metal in here that may or may not be in the original position, but just wanted to point that out. Fortunately, this is not the end of the world, and I can just put some touch-up paint on these surfaces, and either way the door will be in a better operating condition than it was originally. Last step is to grease the door stay so that it operates nice and smoothly. You can apply grease on the door jamb side, top and bottom, and also close it slightly, and then come in here and behind the this kind of limiting pad here, you can also apply grease to the door stay arm, top and bottom, on the inside. So what's the final verdict? How does the door operate now? Well, for starters, it'll stay there wherever you put it, but it swings out smoothly up until here. That's the first detent position. Second detent position. And last one, a little bit further out. Not too bad. Now, if I park next to you at a Cars and Coffee, don't worry, my door won't swing out and hit your car. Overall, pretty happy with the repair. And now we can move on to some of the other stuff I got planned for the door. But yeah, successful repair. Thank you so much for watching. If this helped you out in any way, please like and subscribe. And I hope to see you during the next video. Bye-bye now.